This is Beyond the Veil with Norman Meredith.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Norman coming from Pickens, South Carolina with another episode of Beyond the Veil. And I've got Ed Lease, my producer and part-time show host, with me in the background. And we're going to talk again once more about the sunken pyramids off of Cuba. You remember when that story came out a while back here, Ed, about the pyramids being found off the coast of Cuba?
I do recall something like that. There's been a few different references of different places
but,
as well.
What's amazing is, when it first came out, you never heard no more about it. I mean, it just like went
Got
off.
covered up, maybe.
Covered up or stopped. Well, I was thinking about it, and I was reading an article about nothing has happened archaeology-wise about further exploration into this phenomenon off the coast of Cuba. And no one's saying, well, the Cuban government's stopping it or there's no funding for it. But, it's just... So I got to doing a little looking at it over the weekend. And I re-looked at the structures. Now, if you bring up the first structure I've got...
First structure...
Underwater
structure. Okay, we're going a little backwards today.
Okay, not this one.
That one.
Yes, this one. Now, if you noticed, in the top right corner, you got literal pyramids. And then the layout of buildings without the roofs anymore, because they're probably gone. And off to the left, is an artist's rendition of probably what would be Atlantis. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. What does those pyramids kind of remind you of there, Ed?
Incan pyramids a little bit?
Nah, I don't think so at all. Because
Which ones?
look, the ones from Egypt.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the other.
Yeah, because
actually, the one in the big picture, this one here. Let me put this one right here. The one on the left there, that actually looks like it would be. I've seen buildings like that carved out of one stone in India.
Yeah,
That's sort of what it looks like.
I know which one you're talking about. Yet you're right. The one in the middle kind of looks like something from India, Malaysia.
Top right hand side looks like the king's tombs, and then all sorts of little marketplaces there in the top left corner of the top right hand picture.
But when I was looking at it, it made me think about it, because looking at it more, I said, well, let me look at what the Plateau of Giza looks like with the pyramids and some of the other structures. And I think we've got one in there, Plateau of Giza, with the pyramids laid out.
Yes, sir.
Let's see if you
Right
can look at
there.
this one. That's what made me think they were very similar. Because look at how, you notice how the steeps are on those first three little ones? Mm-hmm. And then the bigger ones? Mm-hmm. Very similar, in my opinion, from just looking at it. Now, it's hard to tell because of the underwater picture, because these pyramids are like 650 feet or better underwater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's off the coast of Cuba, of course. There's still a communist type government, I believe, even through Castro's dead. And I'm not sure if Raul Castro's still running things down there or not. But it's just, look at the similarities, if you notice.
Coincidence?
Or at one time there was one culture. And you know what culture I'm talking about? Atlantis.
And if they were there, apparently the culture wouldn't be, full-time scuba divers. So that had to have been dry land at one point, which tells you there's a bunch of water and might fulfill the Noahic style of flooding.
All right.
Could be.
The story of Atlantis sinking under the sea, which would have some credence about what we're saying. Now, there were some other... oh, Lord, my mind just froze. I brought up a couple other pictures of pyramids in the Mexican peninsula that you might want to throw up.
Is that Yucatan?
Yucatan Peninsula.
All right.
Mayan structures, but they don't look as similar as...
Trying to figure out which one it is. This one here?
That's one.
Okay.
Because if you notice the ones in the foreground here, they're stepped or like steps, and they're flat.
Almost like individual altar areas.
Exactly. And now the one in the background, it's too flat. The angle's too flat to me to be a true pyramid like we'd see in Egypt. And then you notice it's missing the capstone. It's like you'd need a honkering big capstone on there to make it look similar to Egypt. And then I think I got a couple others that we could probably throw up, let people see.
There's some here.
Here's one.
Is that Mayan?
Mayan.
Okay.
Or Aztec. Let's see. Here's another one. Always with the steps.
That's what we have for the stepped ones that are like South American looking. Now we have a few like this.
Yeah.
Is this like LiDAR?
This is underwater, a artist's rendition of a civilization that may have sunk under the water. Like Atlantis. Now, off the coast of Egypt, they've even found the building similar to this off the coast of Egypt, which they believe was Alexandria. That may have sunk because of earthquakes, global shifts, or whatnot. So this is something that's similar to Gulf of the city of Alexandria, which was the great city that had the Library of Alexandria. Now this is just an artist's rendition. All right, so let's see what else we got up there. Do we got anything else left there?
Yeah, we have actually the full view of the underwater one right there. It'll show a little bit closer, a little bit more detail. And we've got that one. But geographically, what you were talking about is this is where they're being found.
Right off the coast of Cuba, which is amazing. But, nobody said if there's anything more out there. And if they did, maybe they were hushed because people don't want to know. They don't want people to know what's really out there. Like say in the X-Files. The truth is out there, but people want to keep it concealed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then too, like I say, the Cubans may be just really funny about not wanting nobody off their waters yet. You know?
When you look at it too, that's the Yucatan Peninsula right there. You have all sorts of semi-freedoms there. And would there be a connection between that and Cuba with a lower water level?
Could have been.
I would say absolutely.
I would.
Absolutely.
Because, in Yucatan Peninsula is loaded with Mayan-style pyramids. And it would not be remiss that there's more under the water there. But the thing that gets me is that they look like Egyptian temples, Egyptian pyramids.
So does that take it back to like the Tower of Babel sort of thing?
Exactly.
If it was, one language,
one people,
one worshipful shape, one pointing towards the heavens or to the individual gods that they had worshipped back then, or Baal as they would call it.
Yeah. My opinion on Tower of Babel was the tower actually was a spaceship.
All right. Elaborate, because I got to hear this one.
Okay. All right. They wanted to reach the skies or the stars, right? With the tower. And to me, to do that, if they were using ancient words, now if you looked at a Saturn V, okay, on a launch pad, what does it look like? Looks like a tower.
Okay. All right.
And
looks like a lot of stuff, but
yeah. But if people had the technology, let's say there was a group, like Atlanteans, we'll say, or people from up there, that were smart enough to build something similar to a Saturn V back then, or a series of them, and then you had the new populace that you've gene engineered up, okay?
All right.
And they don't know what a Saturn V is. It just looks like a tower.
Sure.
And then the other gods, per se, which may be aliens, okay, come down, destroy the towers, and so that nobody can do this again, they separate everybody. Because you destroy the technology, you move the people, because now if you put them all over the world, they can't bunch together again to regroup or try to find any tech that may have been left over to help them rebuild.
Sure.
Now you're back to Stone Age. You've been literally bombed to Stone Age.
Yeah, there's all sorts of different things. The talking about moving people, let's say, the theory that the Native Americans are the original Jewish people who left out of the tower, and they went east, so far east, across the land bridge at the Bering Strait, and then came down into the Americas. That's like Mormon folklore.
I haven't heard that one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They do have a lot of similar features, skin color,
Right.
the ethnic shape of the nose, and maybe some flavors of it in their writing.
Huh. But then, too, that also would explain maybe the Hopi. Now, like I'm saying about the alien connection, okay? Now, the Hopi Indians, okay, said they're the children of the star people. That they're children of the aliens, okay?
Okay.
Or something that looks like an ant person. That, during great times that they were whisked away and brought back. Could be similar.
Sounds crazy, man. It's like
It does, but there's so many little bits and pieces. But if you started to connect them, one, it's going to give you a freaking migraine.
Yeah.
And eventually, when you put it all together, you're going to go, there's no way anybody will believe it.
Right.
Because it just doesn't seem possible if you start thinking about the permeabilities of all these connections. You know what I'm saying? The Hopi, there was another Indian group,
Anasazis?
Anasazis, they completely disappeared.
Yeah. And have you ever been out to their structures?
Well, as a kid, I was out that way as a kid.
Bandelier Canyon, and they have the big ladders that go all the way up.
Yes.
I've been out there.
Yes.
Inside of the caves.
I never was that far, but I got to see them from a distance.
It's crazy, man.
It is.
Yeah. And they're saying that like that group of people, that civilization, expanded out into the other tribes and different languages or inflections of the same language, but that they all came through Canada, the bridge, all the way over from where it was originally.
And then it goes back to like...
But the pyramids follow them. There's like this weird connection, It's strange.
That's like the strangeness with Grand Canyon. Some people that there's closed off areas of Grand Canyon where people say there's Egyptian structures both underground and above ground that have been destroyed. You can see the remnants of what looked like a sphinx sitting somewhere.
Can you see it? Can you see it on Google Earth?
And pyramids.
It'd be great if there was a LiDAR on it too.
Well, yeah, it'd be nice, but you got to remember they're going to Photoshop it.
That's true. And they can always do whatever.
Like they did with moon pictures, of supposed crashed ships up there. What did they do? Photoshop it. Right?
It's a whole nother show.
Whole nother show. Photoshopping is a show in itself.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we could Photoshop this entire show and make us look like teenagers.
That's true. Yeah, we could do it with AI filters. And you never know what's real nowadays.
Exactly.
You have to have a certain level of trust in things.
And I have very little trust in things nowadays.
So I wanted to bring up that there is one picture here. It's the underwater picture. Originally, my first mistake of the day, I'm putting that up first. But this one here.
That was an artist's rendition with a picture of an underwater city supposedly off the coast of one of our somewhere in the off of Cuba, off of Mexico, in the Virgin Islands. It was just one of those things that was in there about possibly like being Atlantis, It was just one of those things. I just thought I'd put it up there as possibilities, of you've heard of the Bimini Road. It leads deeper into the water, but nobody's ever followed it all the way.
Right. And this one here too, it doesn't look like,
it looks like that city.
Like it was a mistake. It's almost like, hey, a very small meteorite hit this area and people used it as a protective covering, and then they built it circularly and for protection. So that shows emotional state. It shows civility. It shows awareness. And then this was pre-flood times.
Yeah.
And then flood came.
Well, domes underwater support water better than a square, rectangle, triangle.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
I don't know about, maybe triangle might, but
Well, it's a flat surface on pressure.
yeah.
These are no bowing, and it's a continuous arcing no matter what angle you go in. So just like gas or air in a compressor, it always had soda bottles and things like that have got to be round. Champagne, especially because it's pressurized, things like that. They're rounded but inverted.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, it holds up a lot of pressures.
So I'm thinking, that it's like that picture that was next to the one of the underground pyramids, the city. That's what it sort of looks like.
Like this here.
Yeah. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
Like it's part of that, because you know what that city looks like on the left? A German castle.
Okay. I want to know how they have power in there.
Thermal venting?
Could be. Are they in the bubble? What is the bubble made of? How thick is it? Or maybe not.
Or unless they're water breathers.
That's a whole nother podcast too. The guild people.
We've talked about mer people before. They could be a form of mer people now. Thermal vents and stuff like that. All sorts of possibilities. I mean, the Russians played around a lot of things. It would not put it past me that the Russians come close to creating a merman at one time.
You never know.
With all the experimentation they did.
Even the World War II, the Nazis, how they were experimenting on people and swapping organs.
There's no
and
telling what they
stuff.
did.
Yeah, mad men.
A lot of that is
things.
still locked up to this day.
Yeah, and who knows when it'll be released? If
Because some of that stuff is just some of the stuff. I think what they did would be just give people nightmares. Literally.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even now,
unimaginable. I
mean, the way some of our woke community is, that would fall into balls and never wake up from the nightmare they would see. That's my belief, but I could be wrong. But all right, folks, what do you think about this? Do you think there's something actually off the coast of Cuba, or do you think this was just an elaborate hoax by some researchers to try to get some money to try to attempt to do something that they knew they wouldn't be able to do because of where it's located? Do you think it's fact, or do you think it's fiction? Do you think it's part of the lost Atlantean culture, or part of Babylon? Do you think it's part of our long history? Some say it was 4,000 to 6,000 BC. Supposedly, but how are you going to know that unless you go down there and start taking samples and running more remote operated vehicles down there? I mean, I don't know how much they actually did, but from the amount of pictures I've seen, which is very, very few, there's not enough information to really give enough data. You know what I'm saying? We need more data. And if the Cuban government knows about this, I think they ought to open the doors and allow scientists to come down there and do this. This would be a great boon for Cuba, I would think.
And they need it, They're not privy to having any kind of freedom, though.
I know.
It's like they're stuck in 1958. It's crazy.
They're social pariahs, and this might help them become more into this world community. That's what I think.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, we're going to leave it here tonight and let y'all think about this. Is it part of Atlantis or something else? Drop your thoughts. Let us know what you think. This is me signing off from Pickens and Ed. We thank you for joining us again for a small segment of Beyond the Veil.